Paul Mescal stars as Connell Waldron in the Hulu miniseries Normal People. I'm Riley Chow, contributing editor at Gold Derby. Now, I would say that it's the 10th episode when people really lost their minds about you. So I want to jump right in and start by breaking down what you pulled off in that episode. Now, I didn't read the book, so I did not pay the character of Rob any mind, in those early episodes. But you obviously know what was coming. So how much did you try to set it up over the 5 episodes that you shared scenes with Ina Hardwick?
Yeah, I think it's important to reference that Aina is one of my great friends from outside of shooting. Like, I'd known Aina. Aina was the year below me in drama school, and there's this buddy system that the college kind of implements, where if you're the year above, you kind of are attached to an actor the year below if they have any questions or things like that. And Aina happened to be mine, and I think in terms of the relationship on set, Aina is an incredibly warm person. He's an incredibly generous actor, and there was beats that we kind of tried to maybe lean into a little bit more. Like, there's that moment in F2, I think it is, or F3, where they played the match and they come in and they kind of bump foreheads, and that was a little thing that's like cut. There's something that wasn't used in the edit after the match, after they win the match. That was kind of a motif. But I think it was just about kind of highlighting the fact that regardless of kind of their political affiliations or the kind of social politics and things like that, that he was a friend and he was an integral part of his community at home. And he also, I think what Aina represents, or what Rob represents, is how comfortable Connell's life was at home, even though it wasn't particularly him. It was Rob represents a kind of comfort, and that doesn't exist once he commits suicide.
Yeah, and more generally, in that whole 10th episode, Connell is verbalizing so much of what he's been internalizing over the past, 9 episodes. So can you talk about kind of threading things so that you get that payoff in those therapy scenes?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. He's somebody who isn't particularly articulate. He's somebody who feels things on a very deep level. And when he tries to verbalize them or articulate them, his words generally fail him. But I think the tool and the process of seeing a counselor is that it's a relatively impersonal event. You're talking to somebody who has no preconceptions of who you are, and you're able to kind of talk about your deep, dark fears. And I think with Connell in particular, at that moment, he's got a lot of things kind of coming to the surface at one particular time. He's got the death of his friend, the suicide of his friend, which is a traumatic event, like a totally like awful event for anyone to kind of experience. He's also not got Marianne in his life as kind of the person who understands him on the deepest level possible. And then he's also wrestling with where he is in the world. He doesn't feel liked, he doesn't feel like he fits in, and he thought all of those things were going to happen, and that all comes to a head within the space of a few months. And his mental health isn't strong enough to withstand that kind of bombardment, and when forced to articulate those things, he breaks down.
Yeah. I would have to say that, even like as an awards pundit, the awards buzz for the show really surprised me. Now, if you are nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series or Movie, what clip would you like them to show during the ceremony when your name comes up?
Jesus. First of all, I'll probably be bawling, crying, so I wouldn't even see it. But I don't know. Probably a scene with myself and Daisy, because I think that the responsibility of the show is totally shared with the director, but also between those two characters. And I feel like that, yeah, I don't know, any of the kind of big duologues between myself and her would be, I think, probably the right thing to do.
Now, your producing director, Lenny Abrahamson, he is best known for Room. He got an Oscar nomination. He got an Oscar-winning performance out of Brie Larson, an Oscar-worthy performance out of Jacob Tremblay, and now he's gotten this out of you. So Brie Larson, she had never been nominated before. Jacob Tremblay, he's obviously a child. You had never done TV before. So he certainly has a way with not only actors, but kind of greener actors. So I'm wondering if you could
Mhm.
speak to what kind of care he is taking that is making him this, performance whispering director.
The man, to put it bluntly, I think is a genius. I think both himself and Hetty, who directed the second half of the series, are, as you said, they put actors at the center of anything that they're making. They're obviously they have the global picture of what they want the TV or TV show or film to look like and feel like. But I think they have a great understanding that regardless of how authentic the world feels, if they don't believe the actors at the center of it, the film or the TV show doesn't stand up. And I think just in terms of their processes, they I never felt disempowered by the conversations we would have. It was always a collaboration in the sense that all ideas were good ideas until the best idea emerged. And I think that's a really healthy and great way to work.
I'm wondering about your process. Like when you received scripts for the show, what are you doing next?
Yeah. So what I did is that I acknowledged that we were blessed that we had the novel as this amazing piece of source material that would support the choices that I wanted to make. And I remember talking to Sally about Connell in particular, that Connell is a character that doesn't speak a huge amount, and that's why in the novel you're able to kind of read pages and pages and pages about what he's thinking, but he might externally just maybe grimace or make a non-verbal sound or say one word. So I remember talking to Sam, she was like, yeah, Connell's tricky to write in a TV show because he doesn't talk a huge amount. So for me, it was about kind of attaching those kind of, say, short scenes or short responses to the kind of inner monologues that we see in the novel, and trying to kind of patch them through so that they felt quite present in my brain, even though he wasn't really talking a huge amount. So I definitely feel like the novel was my best friend throughout all of that.
There is that one monologue that you give, going back to the therapy episode again, where you do say so much, but I'm wondering like how much you really focus on the words in that scene as opposed to kind of everything else that you have to perform.
Yeah, I focus on the words massively in that context, simply because what he's saying is so triggering, both to me, but more importantly to the characters, because I know at that point I knew him so well that for him to say things like, back home people liked me, here I don't think people like me that much, for him that is a statement that is so big it's almost incomprehensible. And things like when he talks about Marianne and how smart she is, that triggered like so focusing on the words was really useful. I think it was about kind of taking my time to kind of bridge the impact of the words. When he hears the words back from himself, I think he kind of realizes that he's in emotionally very deep very quickly, and Noma, who plays the counselor so brilliantly, just allows him to speak, and he kind of slowly unravels, and then he says, I think the thing that kind of really cracks him is like, I thought if I came here I could have a different life, but I hate it here. And by him acknowledging that he hates it here, and also knowing that he can't go back to that same life because it's been destroyed, um he's kind of left in this horrendous, dark, dangerous place.
So you've done a TV show now. You're really thrown into the deep end. What do you wish you knew going into it?
What do I wish I'd known going into it? That it's tiring. It's it's very what I actually wish I'd known is how taxing it is the far side when you finished it, because you work so closely with people that you develop such a tight bond, not only to your fellow actors, but to the rest of the cast and the crew, and then you finish filming and you get in a plane, and then you don't have that tangible connection anymore, and or in the same context, and those things are quite uh, difficult to adjust to, I think.
Now, since the show came out, you've done so many interviews, and so many of these interviews are these, really long form panel discussions on Zoom with Daisy Edgar-Jones, invariably Ed Guiney and Lenny Abrahamson and Sally Rooney. What's something that people who are watching all of these like hour-long chats don't realize about what it's like on your side?
For me personally, I get great joy out of doing those panel discussions, because you basically get free time to listen to people like Daisy and Ed and Lenny and Susie and Sally about their individual creative processes. Because when you're on set, the process is just happening. You're not discussing the process or how people make things. But when a panel starts happening, you start hearing Susie, who was the DOP on the first 6 episodes, and Lenny talk about how they shot it, their lens choices, why certain angles work, why they kind of always kind of maintained a kind of closer proximity with the camera than say a traditional close-up, and kind of just listening to those amazing creative beasts talk about how they make things was very educational and just like great to listen to.
Now, something that you get asked a lot about is, the future of Connell and Marianne. I think you've said that you kind of see them always being involved in some fashion in each other's lives. But do you think it's possible that, they put so much time into each other that maybe, they've kind of gotten all that they can and they don't need to have a relationship?
Yeah, totally. It's definitely a possibility, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. I think it's probably just the romantic in me rejecting that as a possibility. But yeah, I think what's great about them is I can think about what their future looks like, and then the next day it could be totally different. And I think that's just a sign of really well drawn, really well written characters, that I can predict to a certain extent how they will respond to circumstances, but I never know what their relationship together will look like in a consistent basis. And I think that's just so exciting.
And relationships aside, what do you see Connor's future or Connell's future in terms of his career?
I think he has the capacity to be an extraordinary writer. I think he's kind of got all those kind of hallmarks. He's slightly aloof. He's private. I could see him locking himself off in a room for months and producing these things. He's incredibly self-critical, um, and yeah, I think if he gets over the kind of trauma that I imagine New York is for somebody like him, if he can get over that, I think he'll really start to spread his wings. And I like to hope that he has the capacity to be really brilliant.
And finally, the reactions to your performance obviously have been overwhelming. I'm wondering, what was the last performance that you saw for which you reacted the way that kind of people are reacting to yours?
Um, I think one that I saw, that I remember, I was in, I think, my final year of drama school, or my first year out of it. I remember seeing Timothee Chalamet in Call Me by Your Name and being like, "Oh, holy mother of God, what he's doing is terrifying," because it's so good, like it's so present, it's so brilliant. And I think my favorite performances are performances from people who are in my age group, and who are young, and they're kind of producing these kind of terrifyingly brilliant uh, pieces of art that kind of make you leave from the cinema from an actor's perspective being like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that." And there's a lot of people, I think, in the kind of 20s to 30s bracket at the moment really producing a really high consistent level of work.
Okay, Paul. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. We have other interviews with people from Normal People on our YouTube channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions.
Thanks, Riley.